brokered convention. Let's bring in Chief Strategist and Communications Director of the RNC, Sean Spicer. Sean, great to have you here in studio.
Good morning. Thank you.
Do you see this headed for a brokered convention? Is that how this is all adding up?
Let's put it in perspective. We've got 906 of 2,472 delegates so far selected.
Don't try to wow me with your math this morning.
I went to a liberal arts college. There's no math involved. And so we're about a third of the way through. We've got another 150 delegates this week, 300 or so on the 15th. We start getting that key winner-take-all phase where Florida and Ohio and 8 other states are going to be winner-take-all between now and the end. There's an opportunity for some folks to break away, but just to keep things, again, in context, if you won every single delegate, all of them, going forward today, no candidate could reach the 1,237 required to be the nominee until April 26th. So that's literally impossible. So we basically guarantee that we won't have a nominee right now until May.
Wow. That is an interesting perspective in terms of the calendar and how it's all going to shake out. Let's talk about what happened over this weekend. Ted Cruz won 2 states. Donald Trump won 2 states. Marco Rubio won Puerto Rico. John Kasich was never planning, he says, to win any of these states. He has his eyes set on Michigan and Ohio. So let's just, in terms of the math and your wizardry at it, they're both, Cruz and Trump are now both in the 300s. What surprised you about what happened this weekend?
Well, I think the race is tightening. We're down to 4 candidates. People are focusing really on those choices. It's not the 17 that we started off with. And so you're seeing a bit of that tightening. There's some opportunities to break away. But again, as you pointed out, I mean, we're not that far apart when it looks at where everyone stands. You know, you've got 2 of the folks in the 300s, another person, 150 back. But this is not some kind of far and a wide race.
But let's look at the numbers again, because it's really interesting to look at. If you just look at Louisiana, case in point, about what happened there, how different the polling was than what ended up happening. Donald Trump was supposed to run away with it, basically. He was going to, at projection, get 46, almost 47%. Then the results were much tighter than expected. He got 41, and Ted Cruz got 38.
Right. Well, one of the things that was really interesting in the exit polls, in both that race and several others, is there's somewhat of a disparity sometimes between states that have early vote and day of voting. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the discrepancy in the polling, that when you look at the early vote, it matches up a lot more with what the public polling says, and day of votes are different. And I think what that has having an effect is 2 things. 1 is advertising, and 2 is ground game. Those are where really that ground game comes into play.
As you know, 2012 nominee Mitt Romney has been coming out and publicly basically saying vote for anyone but Trump. I mean, he feels as though Trump would ruin the Republican Party. He was asked this weekend on Meet the Press whether or not he would be ready to step in, if need be, at the convention. Let me play that for you.
I don't think anyone in our party should say, oh, no, even if the people of the party wanted me to be the president, I would say no to it. No one's going to say that. But I can tell you this, I'm not a candidate. I'm not going to be a candidate. I'm going to be endorsing one of the people who's running for president.
Is there any scenario in your mind by which something like that happens?
No. Look, we're going to have a nominee that gets 1,237 delegates. That will be our nominee.
But before the convention?
Well, that's up to the voters and the delegates to decide. I still think we're on track for that to happen. That's always what's happened. That's traditional. It's a nice parlor game to play now. I still believe that we're at 85% certainty that we will have a nominee going into that convention. That whoever gets that 1,237 will be our nominee and have the full support and resources of the RNC to win in November. Plain and simple.
I know that you have no horse in this race. You represent the RNC. You don't ever say that you favor one candidate over another. Would it help the party for people to begin dropping out?
Well, I don't know, in the sense that I think every candidate's got to make a decision how much support they have. Do they have the resources to go forward? Those are decisions for candidates and voters to make, not anyone in Washington, not especially for the RNC. The beauty of this process, we started out with 17 amazing candidates, very historic in terms of the level of qualification, the diversity there, and it's the voters who have made that decision. They've decided who move forward, who they're going to provide the resources and votes to, and it'll be ultimately up to them who continues to go forward.
At the beginning of this, did you ever imagine that you would find yourself in this situation with the most unconventional race that people say they've ever seen?
Well, I am excited that the level of enthusiasm that's gone. At the beginning, we talked about record debate turnouts, and it was where is that going to head? And we've looked now, almost every single state, including Puerto Rico last night, you saw a record turnout on the Republican side, and on the Democratic side, you're seeing almost in every one of them lows to below 2008 levels when they last had a contest. I think the enthusiasm, the intensity are on the Republican side, and what's happening is that it's actually showing in the vote. We're seeing, and when you look at battleground states that we have to win in November, we're up almost 100 and 120% in those states in terms of turnout and registration. That's really good for our party.
Though, of course, in head-to-head matchups, Hillary Clinton in the latest polls wins.
Well, I mean, they're already kind of moved on to a general election phase. She's looking at general. We still got us a ways to go. But at the end of the day, again, remember, this is going to come down to a lot of battleground. In those battleground states, the intensity is coming down to the Republican side, not their side.
Sean Spicer, great to have you here in studio. Thanks so much for being here.